Good evening and welcome to the Planning and Zoning Board of Adjustments and Appeals for Monday, July 7th, 5 p.m. Roll call. Tina.
Chairperson Pagachnik,
Here.
Commissioner Smith,
Here.
Commissioner Jump,
Here.
Commissioner Lubavitch,
Here.
Commissioner Mikich. Here.
We'll also know that Pat Green, Tina Glad, City Administrator Greg Brzezinski, and our City Attorney Annie Borland are also present. Approval of minutes. Approve the Board of Adjustments Appeals minutes for May 5th. No any corrections, deletions, if any.
I'll move for approval. I'll second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Carries. Acceptance of the agenda. Acceptance of the agenda for recording purposes, no any additions, deletions, or changes, if any. I'll make that motion.
I'll second the motion.
Any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Number 4, convene the public hearing scheduled for this time to consider variance request for Daniel Contreras, 11135 Coivalou Road, Hibbing, Minnesota 55746, to vary the front yard setback from 68 feet to 48 feet for the construction of a new 24 by 40 detached garage in the A1 Architectural District of the City of Hibbing Code of Ordinances on the subject property 11135 Coivalou Road, Hibbing, Minnesota 55746. Staff report.
Chair, the applicant is requesting a variance to the front yard setback of 68 feet from the center of the road to have the building setback at 48 feet from the center of the road. The reason for the location on the property is for access to the garage from the existing driveway. The septic tank, mound, and drain field location and existing garage on the property makes it not feasible to move it back further onto the property. It appears that the hardship is to locate the garage in a different area on the property would not be feasible. This would not deter from the character of the neighborhood and would not be in any utility easement. There are approximately 6 other houses on this road. The reason the applicant did come in for a variance, or had to, is we did an approved building permit, and when I was out there to do the slab inspection, that's when I noticed he didn't meet that setback from the road. The applicant works out of California.
Yeah, he still was in California, moving to Minnesota.
And Tina was corresponding with him and as far as setbacks and how to measure, and he thought he was measuring from the property line, which was 40-some feet, and then the center of it would have been over 70 feet is what he thought from the center of the road. The applicant wife is here. He's in California, I think. And so he didn't pour any concrete, told him he had to get a variance. He submitted all, he was fine with that. And turn it back to you.
Okay. I guess can I have the wife's applicant come forward?
Hi,
Please state your name and
Lene Contreras.
Your address?
Oh, I'm sorry, 11135 Coiview Road, Hibbing, Minnesota 55746.
.24 by 40-foot building. What's the height of the walls that you're going to have on this building, just out of curiosity?
Since he knows more than I do, sorry.
Ricardo Contreras, the son of applicant, 10-foot walls.
Okay, all right, cool. All right. Anybody else have any other questions, Joe?
Yep, I got one question. Where are the tanks for the septic located? Are those north of the existing garage?
Yeah, directly behind it where it sits right now.
Okay,
Yeah.
so they're out of the way.
Yeah.
Okay.
One question, Chair. I may know the answer to this, but I'll ask it anyway. Was the west side of your entrance road considered for this garage instead of the east side? I'm thinking it would be encroaching on your front yard, but was that even considered at all?
It was the wells there in the yard.
That answers that. Okay.
I have a question. How much frontage do you have on that road?
How much, which, I'm sorry?
How much
Uh,
frontage?
So all the way from where the property line is all the way to the intersection of, what's that one more?
Swinnerton.
Swinnerton.
Oh, so you own
Yeah.
all the way there?
It's pretty low to the east though, right? Like, isn't that lowland? in
Yeah,
that
it's a little
corner?
wet. Yeah, it's very wet
Yeah.
during the summertime.
Anybody else have anything else? Finding the facts? You guys can sit down. Is there anybody else who wants to speak for or against this at this time? Okay, hearing none, we'll close it. I'll go to the finding of facts, I guess. Where is that?
Chair, the applicant that answered the questions is in California, but you could maybe have one of his family members read his response if you wanted someone in the family to read him, but who filled out the application is in California.
I'm not even seeing that page right now. That's this one here.
Yeah, it's typed out.
Yep.
Yeah,
Okay,
he typed it out.
Okay, so right here. So the finding of the facts, I'll just read them. The property owner proposes to use the property in a reasonable manner not permitted by the zoning ordinance. And that is explained how, and his response was, I plan to build an AG building which is permitted. And then number two, the plight of the landowner is due to circumstances unique to the property not created by the landowner. And then, he said, please see attached sheet for answer. And his, answer two was, due to the other garage and mount system, this is the only location I could put the building. I was not aware of the city's right-of-way distance and erred when I measured the front setback for the building. I applied for the variance as soon as I was made aware of my error. And that was dated, looks like 6/5/2025. So, and then for number three, the variance is granted, if granted, will not alter the essence, character of locality. Building another building with his response was building another building with an adjusted front setback will not alter the neighborhood at all. And that's, also what Pat Green said too. Any other questions or comments on this from the commission?
You need to verify if the commission agrees with the responses.
No.
I actually went by the property and I would agree with these. I mean, it's,
You'd go through that, Chair, and that next sheet on those same, that the evidence was either approved or not there.
Oh, gotcha.
So you have that.
Next sheet,
Gordon?
finding of the facts sheet, report of adjustments to resolve above noted petition. In harmony with the general purpose and intent of the zoning ordinances. per subsection 2A, section 11.72 of the city code ordinances, the variance may be granted only when it is in harmony with the general purpose and intent of the zoning ordinances. Finding of the fact statement. I would agree with that. Any other comments, questions? Everybody agree?
Yep.
Okay. 2, consistent with the comprehensive plan. Agree?
Yes.
Agreed. Okay. And then, property, I'll read the next section for subsection 2B of said section. The property owner proposes to use the property in a reasonable manner not permitted by the zoning ordinances. The board agrees with the applicant's evidence affirms the above, yes or no? I would say he agrees to everything that we're doing. That's why he went back through and got the adjustment, put it in right away. Any other questions or comments? Agreed. Okay. 2, the plight of the landowner is due to circumstances unique to the property not created by the landowner. Does the board agree with the applicant's evidence to affirm with the above?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. And then 3, the variances, if granted, will not alter the essence character of the locality of the neighborhood.
That's a yes.
And that's a yes.
Very much
So,
there.
Yep. Okay, that all being said, I guess I'm looking for a motion to approve this variance.
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second that.
I hear a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And then I do believe this has got to go in front of the city council?
No,
No?
fine.
Okay. Very cool. All right. That takes care of that one. On to the next one.
Yep, you're good.
Thank you.
Yep. Now, we're going to convene a public hearing scheduled for this time to consider a variance request for Brian Monty at 2929 7th Avenue East, Hibbing, Minnesota, 55746, to vary the front yard setback from 25 feet to 5.5 feet for the construction of a new 8x8 3-season porch addition to the house in the R2 1-4 family resident district and the Hibbing City Code of Ordinances on the subject property, 2929 7th Avenue East, Hibbing, Minnesota, 55746. Staff report.
Chair, the applicant is requesting a variance to the front yard setback of 25 feet from the property line to 5.5 feet, 5 feet 6 inches. The existing house is 13 feet to the property line, and the applicant is proposing to build an entryway to the house. The entryway would be 8 feet by 8 feet, and that would be 5'6" from the property line. The entryway would be on the south side of the house, facing the street, not the avenue, so would not be in intersection way at all. The applicant has submitted the reasons for the request, and the applicant is in the audience.
Thank you, Pat. Have the applicant please step forward. State your name and address for the record.
Brian Martin at 2929 7th Avenue East in Hibbing, Minnesota, 55746.
Anybody have any questions for him? You might be able to get off scot-free.
All right.
You have a copy of your, finding of the facts and what your responses were. I'm gonna have you read them.
Do I?
Your application, but your answers were on the back side.
Yeah, somewhere in there. Yep.
Yep.
All right, got it.
Chair, Brian, he did have a reason also. We went there today just to verify the measurements, and it was correct. He has a reason why he wants to build that. That would, if you want to explain that reason.
I don't know if you guys drove by the property or not, but I have a 100-year-old house with multiple additions on there, and they kind of peak in the middle and supposed to be a straight line, so I'm trying to break it up. I got soffits at different heights, and a ugly little shed roof that covers the front door. It's about this big by that deep. It's all rotted out, so I'm trying to put a addition on there where I can break it all up, make it look nice for the investment that it would cost to make the front of the house look nice at that curb level, or that curb appeal, you know? It is pretty ugly.
Yep. Anybody else have any questions for him? I think I'm gonna have him sit down, but I'm gonna have you come back forward a little bit and read your answers. Is there anybody else that wanna speak for or against this at this time? She must be with you.
No.
No?
Okay, all right. Well, I guess you can stay right there. Just, we'll go through the, finding of the facts then. So the property owner proposes to use the property in a reasonable manner not permitted by the zoning ordinance. Explain how, and then please read your answer that you wrote down.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
So you're, wish these things were named.
Oh, I'm on the wrong page.
I think it maybe is one page in front of where you are, Brian.
I want to add a 3-season entryway.
Yep. So that's question number one. The property proposed to use the property in a reasonable manner not permitted by the zoning ordinance, and you, wrote down to add a 3-season entryway.
Yes. Did I do- Trying to find my page. I'm still looking, I'm sorry.
Chair can read them.
Yep, I can read them, so. The plight of the landowner is due to the circumstances unique to the property not created by the landowner. And your response was the placement of the house was pre-existing, also lot size is pre-existing.
Yes.
So, okay. And the variance, if granted, will not alter the essence character of the locality. And you wrote down lots of houses in the area have entryways.
Yes, that was my best answer if you come up with, sorry.
Okay.
So, Chair, the first question, in a reasonable manner not permitted by the zoning ordinance. Well, a 3-season, an entryway, et cetera, is permitted. What's not permitted is the setback. And then his other reasons were why he couldn't make the setbacks.
Okay.
It's a little catchy or trick question, I guess.
Yeah.
So then you can go through the findings of facts and agree or disagree by his answers.
You must be, So I'm gonna go to in harmony with the general purpose and intent of the zoning ordinances. The variance may be granted only when it is in harmony with the general purpose and intent of the zoning ordinances, yes or no, finding the fact statement. I'd have to agree with that.
Yes.
Any other questions, comments? Consistent with the comprehensive plan.
Yep.
Yep.
That'd be yes.
Section 2, the property owner proposes to use the property in a reasonable manner not permitted by the zoning ordinances. The board agrees with the applicant's evidence and affirms with the above.
Yes.
Yes. The plight of the landowner is due to circumstances unique to the property not created by the landowner. Correct, because I don't think he was the one who built the building. So, and then the variance, if granted, will not alter the essence character of the locality. The board agrees, the evidence affirms by yes.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah, his house actually faces the street there, and you don't have much room.
Right.
A corner lot, and a lot of times in the corner lots are tough.
Looking for a motion to approve this.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
Oh, the motion is that we grant it. I didn't
Yes.
say that.
Yep. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries. Okay. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, everyone.
Yep, you're good to go.
Discussion.
Yep.
Yes, he has.
Nothing ever in order. There it is. I know we have, any commissioners have anything for open discussion? Corey?
Actually, I don't.
Okay, all right. Okay, and then, we'll go to, it looks like probably
they all have
Mr. Borland for his open discussion, or this is,
And Chair, it's also Ms. Crum. Lisa Crum is in the audience. I think she'd like to speak probably with respect to what's in front of you on the open discussion topic tonight. Ms. Crum is hired as an outside attorney on behalf of the Public Utilities Commission. She is an expert in, what's the best way to, electrical law, to say it, to be blunt. So Ms. Crum has worked with the utility before in the past, and she's here tonight to speak with respect to a proposed interconnect transmission line running from the Keewatin substation that would run over towards the a new substation built around the water treatment plant. In reviewing Hibbing's ordinances, and we talked to Mr. Green and Tina earlier this spring, there was a question about whether or not we needed a process and have it go through your commission. In speaking with respect to, and I think Pat's answer when he looked at it was he didn't know that necessarily we had to go through the planning commission. However, the concern on behalf of the city and the utility is we would like a process to go through, because if there's a process for us, that means there's also a process for Minnesota Power, Great River Energy. Someone just couldn't run a transmission line without getting your approval to do that. And so in your packet for open discussion was the letter addressed to the Planning Commission from the Hibbing Public Utilities Commission requesting that the Planning Commission adopt this process as set forth in the letter of June 25th, 2025. There's a resolution that's been approved by the Public Utilities Commission as well with respect to this. The concept would be is that if you accept this, it'd be referred to the Hibbing City Council to recognize that yes, the city has jurisdiction over these local review of these transmission lines. Normally, you can either go through the Minnesota Public Utilities Commission, but the statute does allow for you to just ask the local entity that has jurisdiction. So the letter sets forth the process if in fact you accept this. The utility is asking you to accept this, and so if you did, it would be referred to the council next week to say, yes, we accept jurisdiction over these kinds of processes, and then the utility would then submit an application going through to get a conditional use permit through your body. There's an environmental assessment that has to be done as well as part of that, a conditional use process. That's also built into this process in this letter. That's what Lisa's here to speak to. If you have questions over it tonight, I just wanted to give you a backdrop. Again, the concern that the city had and the utility had, if we could do it without going through you, that means Minnesota Power could do it without going through you and or Great River Energy, anybody else, without any kind of a process, any kind of oversight by the city. And so this is a way of making sure that the city can kind of protect its assets and make sure things are being done properly. And that's why this process was developed. And so if you guys have questions of me and or Lisa, she's more adept at this area than I am, certainly. So.
Mr. Borland, did you help partake in writing this, or was this mainly Lisa?
It was mostly Lisa and another attorney from a law firm called the Stinson Law Firm in the Twin Cities. They crafted the letter. They crafted it after getting feedback from Mr. Peterson and how to go through this process. But that's where their expertise is working with the Minnesota Public Utilities Commission and these transmission systems. So it's really their letter, not my letter.
Okay. And that was the, more or less the resolution number 25-26, correct?
Yes, that was approved by the commission at the previous meeting.
Okay.
As soon as they approved it, then it was delivered to Pat and to Greg for the city to have to be aware of.
I would call her
Yep.
up and have her,
Yeah.
yeah, have her talk a little bit.
Lisa Crum?
Good evening, everyone. Lisa Crum. As Andy mentioned, I'm working with HPU as a power attorney, so to say. So the notice of intent letter that you have in front of you, as well as, Andy, do they have the draft council resolution?
They don't, I don't think they have the
Okay.
draft council resolution, they just have resolution of utility tax.
Sure. So the purpose of setting up a process for HPU and the transmission line project that they're wanting to pursue is, essentially it's to ensure that a process is being followed here in Hibbing. So the state statute does allow a city like Hibbing to maintain jurisdiction over a project such as the one that's being proposed, the Southern Interconnect project. But under state law, there is a reporting process that takes place with the Minnesota Public Utilities Commission. So even though a city would maintain jurisdiction over its own project, it opts you out of the more encumbered state process and any state approvals. It does require that the local entity then report what they're doing to the Minnesota Commission. And so that does open up opportunities for, I guess, opponents to surface at any time during the process. Excuse me. So we came up with utilizing the state statute as sort of a guide, proposing this process where it would essentially go through your board as a regulatory authority, and it would then require also city council final approval. And so by setting up this process of the notice of intent, it's giving you the authority that will ultimately be looking at an extensive application. You would be looking at, requiring environmental assessment, of the project based on the state provisions. And so then that gives you the decision-making authority to then recommend a decision to the city council. And ultimately, under the state statute, the city council is the local governmental unit that would have to decide the matter. But in light of your role in working with the city council, it seemed to make sense that this would go through your board. And I can walk through some of the technicalities of it too, but I'll maybe leave it for questions.
As far as the transmission lines, what would this apply to? Like if somebody were to build a house and they gotta extend their transmission line, or is this just like the major interconnect lines, or what all will it encompass?
Right, so that's a great question, because this project is different than a distribution line project, which would then, that's sort of what the homes are connecting to. So this is a transmission line, so this is more to connect with the larger grid within the Midwest region. And so it wouldn't interfere with any types of distribution line processes or anything of that nature. Did that respond to your question?
Yeah, I
Okay.
just was wondering how much it encompassed. So,
Chair? To Gordy's point there, I worked in the gas industry for a while, and we had farm taps off of transmission lines that were allowed. They were called farm taps. Let's use that term. Could a homeowner farm tap off that if they have no electrical available except this transmission line that would be running through and near to their establishment? Can that happen?
You know, I would really need to leave that for the engineering experts. At this point, the project itself is only in the design phase. And so with reference to the actual lines and what they could be utilized for, that would probably be something that you would address at the time that an application would come in, because that would definitely be relevant to your interests as a community and the city's interests.
Okay.
Sorry, I'm just the lawyer. So, really, we're just trying to set this up. I know it seems a little strange because it's sort of like coming to you saying, we want to tell you that we're going to come to you with an application at some point. And so it's a little vague right now, but really the goal is to set up that process so that then you would consider this tonight and say, it makes sense that, we would have this board and the city council involved. And so you would be willing to then send this notice of intent to the city council for city council's approval. What HPU would be asking from the city council itself is that the city council say, yes, we are going to maintain jurisdiction over this project. We want to, this is in our community, and we don't want the state commission to be deciding this matter. And so we need the resolution from the city to say, yes, we want to ourselves approve or disapprove of this project. So at this point, the question is, HPU is asking you to refer this to the city council so that the city council can then say, yes, we want to maintain jurisdiction over this project. Or they want to say, no, we want this to go to the Minnesota PUC instead.
Chair, so we're making that decision tonight whether or not we want it to go to the city council or go back to the Minnesota Public Utilities Commission? Is that right?
Well, I guess that's correct. Is that correct, Andy, that it's on the docket to request it be sent to the city council?
To be referred to the city council to adopt this process.
Right.
Ms. Lubitz, that's correct.
So we don't have to necessarily agree with it. You're asking us to forward it to the proper individual or company or as we see fit, right? The MPCU or Hibbing Public Utilities, one of the two.
No, actually, we're asking.
Or
if you-
City Council, I mean.
To the city
I'm
council.
sorry.
Right, right. And you, we wouldn't, like, HPU wouldn't need a referral to the Minnesota Public Utilities Commission. They can just choose to go and do that if HPU wanted to. But HPU does need your blessing in order to go to the city council with a process.
And if I could interject for the whole board, one of the concerns here is if, let's assume for the sake of discussion, we didn't come, the PUC did not come to you and the council for any kind of a process to be adopted at all. And in fact, they went ahead and ran that transmission line, assuming that your ordinance right now as it's written provides for that. Without this process in place, there's a serious concern whether other entities like Minnesota Power or someone else could challenge whether or not the utility really could do this, and did the city have enough oversight over the whole process? Was their ordinance sufficient in and of itself? And so by adopting the process, you build in a protection for anyone building a transmission line in the future, that you've got a little better protection because there's actually a little more documented process in place. If that helps you at all.
Okay, so I'm going to try this again.
Sure.
Because I'm probably unclear. I'm not making myself clear. It seems to me that we are looking at it tonight and I understand Councilor's comment on it had to come to us first for a showing, a front for other entities, that they have to do the same thing. That's what you're trying to get to?
Correct.
And that's right. So it is here now. So what I'm asking for is, now that it's here and we have it on record that it's here, are we looking to say, okay, we want it to go to the city council, or we want it to go to the NPCU? Is that what we're looking for, or just the city council?
They're
Just the
looking
city
at
council.
local authority
Just the city
overseeing.
council, okay.
Mhm.
That's where the hitch,
Yeah.
I got hung up on that, but
Yeah,
I heard those two
apologize.
entities in the conversation.
Yeah, if I wasn't clear.
Okay,
But
so,
just asking, and again, this is the process that, that we have looked at based on the Minnesota process and other local units of government that have done this, and, looking at it from the perspective of just, minimizing any risk for the city and making it the most solid process to go forward in the city.
it's much clearer now.
Perfect,
Thank you.
sure.
Pat?
I just have, so if the city is the governing unit on this, who would, it would require a conditional use, but you would also have, through the Minnesota Public Utility Commission, we would be handling a permit for the route approval and for the need, certificate of need, is that correct?
There is no certificate of need required for this project.
But if you went through because of the voltage,
They're right,
Okay.
because of the line,
so just the
Yeah.
road?
because of the length of the line.
So normally, like for a conditional use, which I was wrong, Andy, I looked at utility corridors again today, and that special provision, what it meant was utility corridors are transmission lines, towers, et cetera, and they do require a conditional use by our zoning in the rural areas, or except for our urban area. So it would be required. Normally, when somebody comes for a conditional use, like a gravel pit, they would either have the permit that's required from Minnesota Pollution Control, or it would be a condition. If we handle this conditional use, I'm wondering, should the route approval already be in hand, or should that be a condition? And I don't know if the planning commission approves that with the conditional use, Andy, because normally it would be approved by a different entity. They're approving that, in that zone, a conditional use is required to run the transmission line, but any other permits from, you know, are normally, would be a different entity or through our zoning department, you know, a permit for zoning approval.
And I
As
think
far
that
as-
might be part of the environmental assessment too, as to where you're going, where you're running
Right.
this line through.
And that would be before they come, and if environmental assessment is required, the planning commission would either have that in hand from the applicant or would be a condition to get it before approval.
Right, so HPU is requesting that the processes go together, hand in hand, so the conditional use permit would proceed as in the same, you know, in tandem with the route permit.
Any requirement.
Right, and so, you know, clearly you have authority over the conditional use permit. You know, maybe that new element is this, you know, route permit and environmental assessment that we're asking, you know, go first through the city council and then sort of come back to you through their finding of jurisdiction. So HPU is asking that it all go forward in tandem, and that the filing that would be made initially would include the conditional use permit application as well as the route application, and it would start the environmental assessment process, which is actually spelled out in the state law. So that requires one hearing that would have to be provided in coordination with your board, and HPU would have to hold a hearing, one public hearing, so that they could hear all public comments on what potential environmental issues may need to be included in that assessment. And then I believe it would take a couple of months after that hearing, and then HPU would have its final environmental assessment, and then that would also be filed with this board. So it would be a process which would take a few months' time, but it would begin with the filing of an initial application, and then the environmental process.
This is, you guys are also looking at buying right-of-way versus utility easements, correct?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
Having right-of-way, actual documented right-of-way where this line may or may not be going versus having a utility easement across somebody's property, correct?
Right, and I believe HPU is working on the different components of obtaining that right away and what that route is going to look like, and believe that decision's expected later this summer as to which route's being selected.
Anything else? Andy, you look like you wanted to say something.
No, not at all.
Well, I think in light of all this, we should forward it to the city council.
Approve it on our end.
Well, approve that it goes forward to the city council. Not necessarily approve this project. That's not what I'm hearing tonight, but
Correct.
approve that we do think it should go to the city council for the next step. And then it'll be documented on record that it came to us.
Yeah, that's what I got out of it. It don't actually pertain to a project. Now, it's just setting up the process for them to come back when they do have projects, or anybody that has one.
Commissioner Smith, exactly right. We're just asking you to approve a process that we're proposing, or at least referring that process that we're proposing to the council for them to approve it. And then we can, and then if they approve it, then the utility knows what direction to go in, going forward.
Andy, would this also work for like fiber optic companies coming through town too?
Communications is
Different.
is different. It's
Okay.
another section. Now, Andy, are we looking at the council approving local authority? Since my interpretation after I redid the utility corridor is a conditional use is required by anybody, where at first I didn't think it was.
Right.
Yeah.
This is still just building in more of a process. for
That we're
conditional
overseeing or approving the whole thing.
Yeah, I was thinking like that, let's say Chisholm and Keewatin wanna run a water main, tie their two cities together, and they gotta come through our area. Would that also entail that, or?
So
maybe-
depending
Maybe
if
Northern
they're-
Natural Gas wants to run a gas line through the area.
I'd have to look.
Yeah, I think this particular section is only dealing with electrical transmission corridors.
Okay.
This particular section of the
Right.
ordinance. There might be other sections, I didn't study them as to whether or not someone's gonna connect through water or some other utility.
Right, I was just thinking.
Yeah, there is communication sections, just like a cell tower requires a conditional use.
Right.
To run that, to run a line or communications fiber optics, if it's in the right of way, that's on, it doesn't not require a conditional use when they're running it in town here.
Okay.
They're not on private property, et cetera.
And I mean, basically, the process that's being proposed is, it's sort of just trying to sort of tie up those legal ends. So it's definitely something that could be considered for other processes that you might want to be interested in looking at for other projects.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Andy, do you need a formal motion from the board?
It would be appreciated if they had a motion to refer it to the council for consideration of the local authority.
I'll make that motion that we approve this resolution to forward to the city council for the process.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Should I possibly read the resolution?
That's entirely up to you, Chair. The resolution's in here for the package discussion. It'll go to the council,
Okay.
and I think, I don't have it here, but I think Lisa indicated there is a proposed resolution for the council to consider as well. But this will be, Tino put it in the packet for the 16th council meeting.
Okay. Now we'll just do that then. Not hearing any other discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. Okay. Anything else for open discussion? Pat Green, keep an eye on Mr. Place over on Fifth Avenue East, about the 2500 block. Backyard's getting dirty again, and see if we can get that camper moved out of the alley. It's kind of blocking for getting big trucks through there. If you know what person I'm talking about.
The camper?
Yeah.
It was moved over to Tammany, but they moved it back to the house.
So that's the only thing I got for
I'm on
Boyd.
Tammany, so I know where it went.
Well,
So,
that would, the police department would handle vehicles,
okay,
but we can let them know.
yep. So, Greg, you got anything?
Mr. Chair, members, nothing from my office this evening. Thank you.
Okay. I guess I'm looking for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.